I'm here today with our friend Chris Montana. We did a segment at his family-owned business, and during that I found out that you and I are both kind of book nerds. I don't know, English majors.
The secret's out.
Secret's out. We love books, and both of us are very passionate about getting our kids to read.
Absolutely.
So I proposed an idea to you about doing this segment regarding getting a parent-child book club started, because I think a lot of people have play groups. I mean, that's a very common thing, but like, why not incorporate reading into that as a piece of it?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me, and that's why when you brought it up, I said, what a great idea. What's also nice for mom and dad is to be able to get together with other mom and dads and then share something with their kids that is going to be a lifelong skill for them, that is going to be important for them to build and also have an interest in themselves. We don't want to be shoving reading down our kids' throats. We want them to want to come to it, and this is one way that we could do that. Mm-hmm. And one nice thing about doing something like this is that it still is structured. There's still something that you can share with your kid, right? And you can sit down, you can do that, both you and your son or your daughter, but also you could do that with other dads, right? And so you can kind of share in that collective nervousness and apprehensiveness of, how do I relate to my kid? Well, you can use the book as the way to relate to your kid.
And I think the nice thing about the book club, you and I talked, is a lot of times dads, specifically dads with boys, and I'm not going to stereotype, but even dads with girls I think do this, but go to that physical thing, that taking your kids skating, taking your kids to do something, but to be part of something more cerebral, which is a lot of times what moms take on, is kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I do that too. When one of the things that you will hear when you walk into my house, particularly when I come home from work, is my oldest boy, who's only 3, is going to run up and he's going to scream wrestle, because it's on, right? Yeah. And I love wrestling with my kid, and I don't see anything wrong with that. But at the same time, you want your kid to see you as more than, you don't want to compartmentalize these different skills that they're gonna learn. As a father of 2 boys, I want them to know that it's perfectly fine for you to, one, be a physical guy and competitive and all that, but I also want you to be a cerebral guy, and I want you to, also think about, how can you be using your mind. So sitting down with the boys and saying, yeah, maybe we wrestle, this, that, and the other, but Dad likes to read. Do you want to read with me? They usually are now the ones coming to me saying, here's my book, let's read this, Dad. Of course, they can't read, but they want me to go through it, and they enjoy the process.
What I think is interesting when we're talking about a book club, I think people think about things like this, like chapter books and maybe reading offline. But a book club can be just as simple as taking one of your favorite books, your favorite picture books, and whoever is the host parent simply reads this out loud. There could be some sort of easy craft with it. There could be a snack, but it does not have to start when kids can read. It can start much earlier than that.
Yeah, and kids are interacting with these books way before they can read them, right? And that's one of the nice things about picture books, right? Is that we're going through it, we're telling the story, they're getting that story, but they see something on the page that we didn't talk about. Right? They see maybe there's a bird off to the side. They want to know about that bird. They want to know what that bird is doing. And so even as we're going through a page, that for these books that are for younger children, volumes are not going to be written on those pages, right? That's not really the point. But we still can ask questions. We still can ask, hey, what's the bear doing here? What are the birds doing? How many birds are there? And the kids can still interact with it, and it becomes more of a back and forth as opposed to I'm just feeding you information.
I love that. And allowing, whenever I used to go into my children's classrooms to read books, you would get to do that. I would always allow space at the end of a page for those kinds of questions and interactions to happen. I think it's really important because they are noticing things that we're not noticing.
Yeah, and they want to be a part of it. I mean, what kid wants to sit still for? I mean, how long does it take to read a book? Maybe it'll take you 10 minutes.
Right.
Do you know any young kids who want to sit still for 10 minutes? I'm having a hard time sitting still right now, right? So, I mean, they want to be a part of it.
They do want to be a part of it. One thing I like to do with my kids is actually have them sit right beside me so they're seeing the words that I'm reading on the pages.
There have been books that should have happened in 5 minutes that have taken a half hour because it's what does that word say? What does that word say? And I mean, you're just, the grin, you can't wipe it off your face because that's exactly what you want. You want them to be interested in that because they now have an interest in figuring out how can they read it on their own.
Right. Chris, you brought this book today, and I've never seen it before because my kids are a little bit older than yours, and I think this is newer. But what do you love about this book?
So for any book, for any writing, you're always thinking about your audience. And when you're reading to small kids, those kids can't read. So you're telling them the story, but the person reading it is mom or dad. And mom and dad get to, have a little fun too. So what I like about this book is it's a good story. It's perfectly applicable. It has that little bit of didacticism to it. So the kids are going to learn a little bit, and that's fine. But the drawings and the dialogue are also reaching back to mom and throwing a couple jokes at mom and dad. So I think that is an author who knows their audience. Right?
I love that. I love reading very clever books.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say before we conclude also is I think that people think that once a child can read, they don't need to be read out loud to. And I disagree with that. Anybody loves to have a story told to them. And what's nice about that is, your boys are a year and a half apart. There will be a significant difference in one's reading ability versus the others at a certain point. But if you're reading out loud to them, that younger child can still, even if he can't read the book, understand what's going on and be part of the story.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I love it. All right, I think book clubs, we should start our own book club.
Let's do it.
All right.